welcome back to the group stage of Season 3 World Championships. Up next, it's going to be GMB. They're going to be taking on MSK in their first match here at the Worlds. But right now, I'm happy to be joined by Ozone support player, Mata. So, Mata, first of all, welcome here in North America. I know you guys have enjoyed your trip over to Los Angeles, but there's been a change in the Ozone team since you came over from the Korean qualifiers. It's Looper has stepped in, I believe, for Hom in that top lane. What has started this change?
마타 선수 미국에 오신 걸 일단 환영하고요. 미국에 오신 후에 그 로스터의 변화가 있었다고 난 얘기가 있는데요. 톱레인에 옴무 선수 대신 루퍼 선수가 들어왔는데 그 이유가 무엇인지요?
저희 팀이 이제 선수를 한 명 더 늘리게 되어가지고 어떻게 하면 더 전략적으로 팀을 운영할 수 있을까 해가지고 오늘 루퍼 선수가 대신 나오게 되었어요.
So we ended up adding another player, Looper, to our team, and we believed utilizing Looper would add another strategic layer to our team.
Do you feel he's going to be able to be fine under the pressure because he's never played at OGN Champions?
Could you repeat that?
Looper's never played in the OGN Champions League. It's a little bit surprising.
GMB versus Southeast Asia's MSK. And while most people here expected to see Gambit at Worlds, MSK is quite a bit of a surprise.
They have a really interesting story, actually. So originally, they didn't even qualify for the Southeast Asian regionals. The Filipino champions, Exile, couldn't make it to Vietnam to play the LAN there, so MSK took their place in the tournament. And at the SA regionals, they got sent to the loser bracket by Singapore Sentinels, who were the favorites to win that whole tournament. But MSK bounced back, clawed through the lower bracket, and then won 2 games straight against SGS and won the champions. So MSK basically coming out of nowhere, 2-0 at the very end. Suddenly they're here at Worlds, and they've just got to rally that momentum and surprise everybody.
Yeah, and it's something that the Singapore Sentinels did last year as well, if you recall correctly, falling in the final. And while most people are a little bit unfamiliar with the members of MSK coming into this tournament, one player that really stood out during the qualifiers that we were talking about through their entire run was their AD carry EXO.
Yeah, EXO's done very, very well. He out-dueled the Southeast Asian All-Star Chawi in that grand final matchup, and he went 28 and 28 in those 2 games. So he's put up some very good performances. And, he plays auto-attack-based carries. He plays guys like Tristana and Ezreal, who actually put out good damage throughout a fight, and that's actually really important as a carry role. So if he can keep putting all-star performances out for his team, then MSK stands a good shot in this match.
Well, and while EXO and MSK are making their first appearance at a World Championship, their opponents today are seasoned World International competitors.
Oh yeah, Gambit's been around for a while, and last year 4 of the 5 of them tied for 3rd at the Season 2 World Championships. These guys have never placed below 4th at a major international lane. These guys do not underperform. And so this, I'm going to say, gives them a bit of an edge coming into this tournament.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah.
Because, after their 3rd place finish last year at Worlds, there was a lot of expectations for Alexish and his entire team coming into Season 3 of the European LCS. But you have to be very honest, because unfortunately for Gambit and for all of Gambit's fans, they didn't actually live up to the hype that was placed on them.
You're right, they had kind of a rough time. So they had a pretty good spring split. They finished 2nd there, but then they kind of slipped up a lot in the summer split. They never held the 1st place spot. They had a very narrow run in the playoffs. They had to take the 3rd and final spot there. And a lot of this was because they lost their support player, Edward. He went over to Curse in North America, and they've made multiple roster changes since then. Right? They had Darker in there for support, swapped him out for Voidal now, and they're just now starting to gel together again. And the postseason started to finally look a little bit better, but they've got to keep that going up. They've got to have a better team coming into Worlds. Now, they boot camped in Kiev. They boot camped in Kiev, and they had a very strong final week of the regular season. They took top 3 in the postseason there at Gamescom, so they are improving, but they've got to make a big push here in the postseason.
Yeah, one of the things that really stepped out is they did continue that very good play over in the playoffs, and they have continued that boot camp. And we haven't seen how well they've been doing since then. And one of the major improvements that came out of this specific boot camp was the incredible play of their duo lane of Genji and Voidal. And the reason I really highlight that is because they stepped up their performance on the Rift during the last couple of weeks. the early stages of the summer split, Genja
Yeah.
plus Darker, Genja plus Voidal, was not quite as scary as it was during the playoffs.
Yeah, so like we touched on before, coming into the summer split, Gambit had to replace Edward. Right, Darker Field, they put in Voidal, and communication issues were really the big struggle. We talked to a lot of the people about duo lanes, and they say it's about synergy, it's about being on the same page, and adding a new player can be rough. So yeah, it took them some time to get up to speed. That boot camp seemed to have gelled that synergy there. The duo lane and the bottom lane is getting a lot better.
There is a quote I want to reference from an interview that they did with Genja where he said, a duo lane has to be more than a duo lane. We have to be, and he pauses and he goes, friends? And he almost sounded confused at that. And I wonder if him and Voidal have made friends. Guys, we've talked about the bootcamp and the new support, but if we're talking about the key to Gambit's success, we do have to look at the all-star jungler, Diamond Prox.
Yeah, Diamond is recognized as one of the best and the most innovative junglers in the world. He's always been known for his Lee Sin, but he really had some, I would say, enlightened games with Jungle Karma, and that actually took Europe by storm a little bit. And in the regionals, it was his Evelynn and Aatrox that helped get Gambit to Worlds.
Yeah, while Diamond and crew are used to playing in front of thousands of fans, today they'll actually be playing against some of their fans when they step onto the Rift to battle MSK.
I'm very excited. I never thought that I'd reach this point.
I'm one of their biggest fans. I actually wanted them to win Season 2.
It's really awesome when you're playing against your fans. It's gonna be a pretty hard match for us. Every team here is the best teams in the world.
I consider Alex as a very good mid laner. For now, it's half exciting and half nervous for the upcoming matches.
I think it's cool. A lot of SCA teams and other teams that are coming here were our fans, like last year. I think a lot of teams are looking up to Faker, and he's 17, so it doesn't matter. I don't think that we are that old.
Honestly, I think they're gonna win it all.
We have a little chance, but we will do our best to get that cup.
They're still good. They are still like one of the best teams in the world because they're here. So we need to play our best and just win them.
It's a little disheartening to be like, all right, we think they're going to win the tournament, but we'll do our best.
Yeah. Guys, let's take a look at those starting lineups. In the blue corner, of course, it is Gambit Gaming. Up in the top lane, it will be Darian. In the jungle, it's Diamond Prox. In the mid lane, Alexish with Genja and Voidal as your AD carry and support.
And on the red side, it is the underdogs of MSK. Snoy in the top lane, Kaigu in jungle, Yume in mid, EXO is the AD carry, and TG on support.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how this picks and bans phase goes forward, because there's things that we've theorized backstage that MSK may decide to pull out some unorthodox things during the picks and bans, just because they do play another region. And as an underdog, if you pull out those surprise picks, those surprise champions, it can catch your opponents off guard and help you pick up victories.
And we've seen this happen. Early game plays, early game gambits really can set you apart. Lemon Dogs got an early game lead against SKT1. Unfortunately, they didn't have the mid game to follow. But OMG got a really good early game lead as underdogs in that matchup. As right, like basically, literally everyone, not literally, but like basically everyone thought SKT1 was going to win that matchup. But if you get an early lead and hold it, that's actually super, super massive for your team, and it lets you push forward, and it lets you get that victory. It lets you snowball the item lead and just crush. So you've got to start out strong.
The thing for MSK is to make that a substantial lead.
Yes.
Because Gambit is a team that is incredibly well-traveled. They have played from behind many, many times. One of my favorite victories that they've been able to pull out was at Intel Extreme Masters Kiev, where they lost to, I think it was the CJ Entersis, if I recall correctly, and got dropped to the lower bracket, came from the lower bracket up to win 2 series and actually win the entire tournament after getting knocked down. And there's a famous sort of way that Gambit plays in many of these tournaments. They lose early in the group stages, and then ramp up and peak at the right time. So we'll have to see if that trend continues here.
All right, well, coming in when these guys are cold is going to be the best chance then for MSK here. Picks and bans coming through. Jarvan and Shen, I mean, these are the standard things. And what I actually want to look at is what happens with the AD carry picks and bans, because they're vastly different players. Genja's full utility, Ashe, Varus, Misfortune, Champion 2 can press R and contribute to a team fight. Whereas it's like the Ezreal, the Tristana, the auto attackers here for EXO, and those bans will only be one-sided.
I'm really happy you do highlight that, because Genja as an AD carry does tend to rely more so on his abilities than most of the AD carries at the top of the scene. However, during the playoffs, he really stepped his game up and he became a threat to be reckoned with. The bans are all in. Lee Sin and Thresh taken away there from MSK. They have targeted 2 of them at Alex, the Zed, and the Orianna, but it does leave Ari up and available.
Yeah, so there's Sona, and with Thresh being banned away as well, this actually limits a lot of the support options left for MSK, actually. Those are two of their most popular champions that they ran throughout their qualifier run. So suddenly, some of their options are going to be dropped away. But it's interesting kind of when you look at the bans here for Gambit, they've banned away champions that they like to play. Thresh is Voidal's most played support. Lee Sin is what Diamond's known for. Jarvan, another champion he plays a lot, but they're basically not respecting MSK's champion pool, saying your pool's smaller, we've still got more to get back on, even if we ban our own stuff.
Be interesting to see where Gambit decides to throw either the likes of Evelynn or Aatrox. Aatrox, a champion that we've seen in Darian's hands, we've seen in Diamond Frox's hands, and of course Eve. I mean, if you think back to the All-Star game, he was dominant on that jungle Evelynn, and it's something that Gambit like to trend towards. So we'll have to see what they decide to go with in these next couple of picks.
The one thing you have to think about when you play Jungle Eve is, do your lanes have crowd control or your ganks are useless? Now, thankfully, Renekton is still here, as is Aatrox still here for the top laner Darian, so that he can actually follow up on Evelynn ganks to force kills. So that is one thing you're going to have to consider when that champion comes through. But on the other side for MSK, the Fiddlesticks coming through, we've got to assume as a support. The jungle Nocturne as well. And the thing is, they're basically looking for more engage off of this. The Diana comes through, the Nocturne follows up, the Fiddlesticks follows up. They're all going to want to try to go in there, wombo, and force a lot of aggression on the Gambit team. That's how they're going to look for their win.
7 for 7 on Corki right now. We talked about how Genja likes to rely on his abilities. He likes to cast spells while dealing damage. There is no better AD carry that fulfills that sort of role than a Corki.
Exactly. So he will be more of a... It's more like towards the Misfortune side than the Ash Vera side, where his goal is to deal damage in the team fights, but this still does fit his playstyle. Diamond is a player who basically never buys attack speed. He'll go Merc Treads more than he'll go Zerkagrees, basically. He'll stack Bloodthirsters just to get more bullet time damage output, and this fits his style very, very well. We've talked to Doublelift a lot, actually, even off the cameras, and he says, yeah, you want to just keep adding damage items. I would stop at Zeal and get a Last Whisper on even someone like Caitlyn, just to make sure that I have actual attack damage to be useful.
Well, we'll see how Genja decides to itemize in this particular matchup. MSK have followed up their next two picks with a Diana and Ezreal. So this little combo of Fiddle, Nocturne, Diana, there's a lot of sort of dive-in potential that's coming up. Yeah. And that's going to be Diana versus Ahri in that mid lane. That's a matchup that we don't see all too often, but is sort of there. It's on the fringe cases.
Yeah, it's interesting because both laners have really good push potential and both have pretty good kill potential. They're both able to dash in there, start a battle, crowd control their opponent. And if you get follow-up from your jungle, that's a very likely kill to come through. So it's going to be how well do these guys actually play the matchup. It's going to be more of a skill matchup, and with Alex Ich being a world-renowned mid laner, and again, MSK saying, oh, we're fans of you, you've got to assume the skill lead probably goes to Alex's side, but you never know. Up in this stage, people go superhuman sometimes.
Well, it's the big stage. It brings out the best in people when you're sitting in front of this crowd and there's so much to play for. Yeah. You just get completely in the moment. Now, we do see the Gambit composition with Renekton and Aatrox. They have really rounded up the sort of mobility. They've got a great in-your-face sort of potential if they want to pick those. If they do want to pick those fights. But on the same token, there's a fair amount of survivability there. Renekton's ultimate, Aatrox's passive will bring them back to life, you know, in worst-case scenarios.
Gambit have built themselves a brawling competition. Their hard engage is kind of mid-range. Renekton can get in, Ahri can get in, Aatrox can get in, but it's all kind of shorter range. It's not Malphite Orianna. It's not Ashe Arrow. So they're looking to fight more in the jungle and just brawl because they're really good at fighting those mid-range fights. On MSK's side, they actually have dive potential. The types of fights MSK wants are different. Even though both these teams like to 5-on-5 with their general compositions, the types of fights they can pick are very different. MSK with the top lane Zac in there will dive hard, and they will just look for openings and try to capitalize.
For the most part, both of these teams have actually got comfort picks here. Yeah. I mean, you know, seeing TG on that Fiddlesticks is a slight change. His most played champions were Sona and Thresh coming into this. Thresh was banned, Sona was taken away. Exactly. So, you know, he had to switch over. Genja, not necessarily renowned for his Corki of late, but we know he played it in Season 2 and he played it phenomenally well. So everybody's playing what they're comfortable with, what they know very well. And it's going to come down to whoever can make better use of their champions correctly.
Yes. It is a clash of different styles, and whenever that happens, just as we've seen throughout the game so far today, when you have different styles going at each other, you've got to basically exert your style better and say, we're going to fight on our terms and keep doing that. And that's how you get yourself ahead.
Well, while the players are loading up into the Rift, let's take a look at who you guys think is going to win this matchup. According to LOLesports.com, 79% of you think that Gambit will be victorious. Every single one of our analysts have picked Gambit, but traditionally, Gambit start the group stages of almost every tournament poorly. So we'll see if history or an analyst's predictions is the correct one to go for here.
Remember that they're actually no. This group are not yet like educated predictions. You guys all get to cheat throughout Group A by voting in
Research.
If you see teams play. Research predictions.
Weren't you listening, freak?
To you, no.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we are live for Game 2 here in Group B. Gambit on the blue side, MSK on the red side. The compositions right now definitely lean towards tons of action, and we'll have to see who's able to manage to pick up a win in this early stage. Right now, both teams starting themselves off defensively, and Kage, he's hanging himself down in this bottom lane with EXO and Yume.
So Gambit already doing something a little bit different that we don't see very often. This is a research choice here. They've warded their own Tri-Brush, expecting this invade from MSK. This is an uncommon ward. If someone uses their body to watch this, you typically see them leave when you get into that brush. You'll actually see them as they run away. So this is actually MSK not knowing they're spotted on this invade.
Well, they are going to be stood right on top of that ward. Gambit will be saying, we have done our homework, and there will be little grins across the faces of the Russians as they are fully aware of their opponent's positioning. Now, they are setting themselves up potentially to trap. We'll have to see how they play this one out. As I say that, MSK advance forward and Gambit immediately back away towards their opponent's red buff. MSK with some early vision.
This gave Gambit any wards they wanted. They knew all 5 of MSK were the bottom side. MSK had to be very careful about their invade paths. But at the end of the day, the Philippines team, they got actually really good wards down. They got one over by the Wraith Brush left-hand side. They're camping to steal away red. And Gambit, now they have a pretty good idea of where they need to go, but they're still getting spotted while basically stealing back their own red.
All right, Diamond Prox and Darien are going to get spotted up by that ward, so MSK are going to be aware of the steal. Gambit are going to be fully aware that their red buff is being taken away, and as it stands right now, Genja tries to steal with a Phosphorus Bomb. That's quite a bit of damage early on. We do know he can't chase as he put that point into the Q, not the W, and at the end of the day, Kage gets away, just losing a little bit of HP.
Genja was one auto attack away from stealing that was Phosphorus Bomb. I want to point out how close that was. One auto attack slower, one less auto attack from EXO, and that would have been a stolen red buff there by Genja. So despite everything, it's still a pretty smart read, but these junglers will be trading buffs equally. They both got a steal on red, they're both grabbing their own team's blue. And with a standard duo lane bottom as well, you likely won't see early jungle pressure because it's hard to force things when you don't have crowd control in your lane yet.
Well, we'll have to see how it works out. Right now, TG trying to trade with Genji, and you know, at the end of the day, damage looks even, but Voidal's going to be able to heal that up in the not too distant future. He does hit level 2. We know he's got Dark Wind leveled already.
But MSK are the team that's pushing, so they're actually going to hold on to a level lead for a little while here. And with that pink ward down in the brush, Voidal can no longer ward down there. Now, it's hard to force a gank with a low-level Nocturne, but as far as jungle control and brush control goes and free harass, MSK has it here.
Yeah, TG just playing to be a real nuisance right now. Basically, every time a cooldown's available, he's throwing that onto Genja, just poking him and forcing him backwards, making him miss some CS. Diamond Prox has snuck himself up to the top Tri-Bush and wants Snoring.
And there's no wards there. He looked at the starting build from Snoring and said there's no wards, I can sneak in and go for a gank, but Nocturne's nearby for the counter gank.
So we'll have to see how this pans out. Kage is about to bump heads with Diamond Prox. They see each other. Level 3 versus level 4. Shroud of Darkness goes up. Kaigu gets thrown into the air, but the fear throws Diamond backwards. He flashes forward. Remember, Bloodwell is available, but junglers without flash.
And that was an incredibly close trade right there. Diamond is saying, I'm going to go for the fight. And because Darien was the one pushing, he got to that fight first. It was his team that was winning the battle. But Genja's so incredibly low.
He's been exhausted. The Dark Wind bounces. First blood secured by TG. Now Ignite is ticking. Voidal tries to chase him down. 70 HP as it wears out. And MSK with the first blood big play.
And there's the level advantage at work right there. Genja still level 2, pretty weak barrier. And Voidal, because of how late he leveled up, only got so much time to pump healing into his teammate. Voidal has plenty of mana, but not enough time to keep Genja healthy.
We'll see how this pans out. EXO right now, 23 CS to 14 as he decides to back away and starts to recall. Now, I want to highlight, EXO played Ezreal an excessive amount during the playoffs, and he built what we call the sort of Elementalist build. I don't know if it still applies.
I don't know if it still applies. I almost want to wait to see what he buys as he just recalled. So it looked like a Trinity Force build right here, but he actually had been going Bloodthirster into Static Shiv into Iceborne Gauntlet, and he was just, you know, applying elemental damage the whole time around, which isn't a thing in League of Legends, but don't worry about it. And it was just interesting and thematic, but I'm going to expect it's the standard Trinity Force style, but having Trinity Force earlier is going to be a pretty big lead for him.
Yeah, we'll have to see which of these Trinity Force AD carries can get to that item first and make better use of it. Remember back to the analyst block segments, Doublelift was quite outspoken that Ezreal with Trinity Force not quite as awesome as Corki with that Trinity Force. It's a 600 gold lead for MSK, and basically the early game has gone their favor so far.
Yeah, so what you've seen with Genja is he needs to kind of keep his lane alive. Now, typical for Genja, he gets 2 to 3 Doran's Blades anyway, but he's been forced to pick this up just to try to survive and get stats for the lane, whereas Exo's already on his way to Trinity Force, has the Longsword, has boots as well, so he won't even die easily. And now both junglers, though, on opposite sides of mid, looking to turn this fight around.
Alex gets pulled backwards by the Moonfall, but that's massive damage. Once Diamond Prox joins in, Ignite is ticking away. Alex secures a kill onto Yume as the Bloodwell passive throws Diamond up into there. Kaigu is going to use that Shrine of Darkness to block a spell, but cannot stick through the sustained damage, and a successful gank by Diamond.
The burst damage coming out for Diamond is so much right there, forcing the kill. The bottom lane, honestly, for MSK at this point, won't be able to win anymore, I don't think, just because there's enough sustain coming out from Voidal. He's already got 2 points in his heal right there, and Genja's not going to fall over anymore. But the mid lane is now what's important. So the bottom lane is frozen and whatever. They're just going to farm for a while, and their mechanics will determine minion farm scores. But Alexich now being a kill up and 13 minions up on Yume means he will bully that Diana out of lane, have more pressure roaming, and Alex will have a field day on this map.
Well, we'll have to see how efficient he can make that happen. Currently 13 CS ahead. He does have a level advantage for the time being, but I can't imagine Yume is very far away from hitting level 6 himself. And what we do see is that top lane heavily pushed in favor of Darian right now. He does have a pink ward in his back pocket, but he's decided not to use it.
Now, you may be right about that. The Diana right now going for the race, and that might just be enough experience to get 6. If not, he'll get it on the next wave. But if he doesn't here, there's still an ability advantage. Okay, he does just barely hit 6, but even still, I don't think you can force Alexich out of lane. Even though Alex hasn't picked up any more durability, just the 2 Doran's Rings on each side, there's just not enough damage out here unless Nocturne forces his way in.
Well, Nocturne does actually have his Paranoia available, so that's a pretty easy way in if you're looking for an opening. But the question is whether or not that's going to be enough to stick to Alexich's Uri. He's got 3 charges on this Spirit Russian, a Fiendish Codex to boot, so some CDR to make it even more available, more often, moreness with that item.
Yes, exactly. So it's just going to be Alex, again, running around at the map. He has enough ability power now that by the time he hits level 9, he will one-shot caster minions with Orb of Deception. Even now, they'll only take about 1 auto attack to make sure he clears the wave. So Alex will keep Yume at his turret, and basically, Diana has to ask permission to leave his lane.
What we've seen from both of these teams thus far, with the exception of the 2v2 in the bottom lane, is that Diamond Prox and Kaigu have sort of, Kage rather, have moved to the same positions relatively similarly. You can see now once again, Diamond Prox and Kaigu in the same area of the map. TG is going to throw down the Fear onto Voidal. Ignite now is stuck onto Fiddlesticks. He's back with about 450 HP. And you can see that Kaigu is just going to backward cling. They seem to be ganking in similar parts.
The Gambit has ward control. Diamond is not spotted coming in.
True Shot Barrage goes down. There comes the Paranoia. We're going to see Nocturne fly forward. He throws himself onto Diamond Prox. Now the Blades of Torment actually misses. There's no Blood Well available. MSK secure the second kill of the game. Genja falls so low, and the exhaust mitigates any kill potential.
The just amount of crowd control that comes out of Fiddlesticks with his abilities. He has not got a point in Drain. It's 2 in the Silence, 3 in the Terrify, used Exhaust as well. That's so good at locking up targets. And Diamond, look at his build. There is not a shred of tankiness in that build. He's only level 6. That is an easy champion to destroy when you focus your efforts.
Darian is not respecting Snoy here at all. He's doing this lane cutting with Renekton and farming between 2 towers. And Darian, a player in EU that traditionally feeds to win. The running joke is if Darian goes 0-5, Gambit will win the game. Because whenever he's being focused by his opposing team, Gambit tend to use that to control Dragon and push other objectives. And right now, he's painting a massive bullseye on his back.
Yeah, he is, but he's building tanky is the thing. The Giant's Belt already done right here. Not even going for the standard Spirit Visit build you sometimes see against a magic damage top laner. He's like, no, I'm building Sunfire. I'm going to be a split pusher. You're going to hate your life. I'm sorry, MSK, but Darien is here to stay in that top lane.
Well, we'll see how effectively Darien can continue to push it out. A decent-sized wave in front of him, so this will even out those numbers. And across the board, it is still very, very close. Alexic holds on to a very minor 9 CS lead in the top lane. And we see some differences here from our AD carries. Phage picked up for Genji's Corki, as opposed to a Sheen pickup from EXO's Ezreal. And we imagine they're both working towards that Triforce as quickly as possible.
The pickup for EXO makes a lot of sense right there. Longsword actually lets you last hit under turret. You'll actually, it guarantees you can last hit minions, either melee or range, without support from your support. So that was a smart pickup, but Sheen is so easy to apply from Ezreal. It's actually the build I would recommend as well for both these champions, because it's much easier to apply with Mystic Shot than it is for Corki. But the interesting thing is, with Gambit's ganks failing, they wanted that bottom lane gank to go take Dragon for free by building a big lead, and then Alexic is more powerful than his mid lane opponent. But with that gank failing, MSK have actually a really good opportunity to wait for the team fight phase and force them, but Diamond's coming back.
So we do see Crescendo is available, as is Flash for Voidal. The question is, do they want to jump in to use that? You can see MSK grouping up towards the mid lane. It looks to be just a matter of time before somebody jumps onto their opponents. This time, though, Kaigu decides to back away and get out as safely as possible.
So let's see what happens right here, because the top lane hasn't done much. The Gambit are still trying to bait a fight in the bottom lane. Darien's been sitting here for or not Darien's, but Diamond's been sitting here for about a minute, but Nocturne shows top. This is not good for Darien.
Darien throws down the Dominus, is going to flash away and actually gets out basically just through walking, but ultimate and flash burned. And as we talked about, spend some time giving some love taps to Darien, and Gambit say, we want to Dragon.
Very well orchestrated play here by Gambit. There's not people around to stop this. Not successfully anyway. TG off to the side, and Alex goes for it.
Oh, the charm doesn't land though, but TG is just getting chunked down. Between Alex and Genja, they pick up a kill and a dragon and extend the gold lead, and Darien just returns to the lane to continue farming.
That was just, it was unnecessary there for TG. He, you know, there were every cooldown was available here for Gambit to use on him, and we see a lot of Ahri's kill supports. That's probably their #1 source of food, is Ahri's killing supports. And it happened right there again. TG unable to land any abilities to stop that chase down. Genji coming up from the bottom as well, really useful. But that's just a play you'll make as Gambit 100% of the time. It's just an unfortunate choice there by MSK.
Who fed Ahri? It tends to be those supports, and we'll have to see if Alex can continue picking on TG's Fiddlesticks. Of course, Fiddle, with all of that crowd control, the silences and the fears, can make Alex's life very difficult. He still only holds a very small CS advantage in the mid lane, as well as that additional kill and now Dragon Gold.
I'm actually surprised by Alex's choice of build. He's not playing that sort of playmaking roam around by Deathfire Grasp and kill everything Ahri we see from most players. He's actually going towards the Abyssal Scepter, afraid of Yume. He actually does not want to get jumped on. Despite the early lane matchup being good for Alex, Yume's held on. He's got a Nocturne to dive in and force kills on Alex, so he's building a bit defensively.
So to be fair, there's two things about this. There's a lot of magic damage from the rest of the MSK lineup that also backs it up, but in addition to it, you know, Alex hasn't had the strongest of splits throughout the summer split. He has been fairly hit or miss. He wasn't quite as dominant as he was in the spring split or even last year. And maybe a slightly more defensive start can at least make it safer for him to get to that power position. It's definitely something you can't discount at a tournament as large as the Season 3 World Championships.
Sure, absolutely. It's just interesting to see Gambit play a slower paced game, especially when they're a sort of like mid-game focused team of just picking fights with mid-range champions, and they're not really forcing the issue, but TG is!
Oh, take a look at that. Crowstorm into a flash. Crescendo locks TG up under the tower. Massive turret damage. Ignite is ticking away. The Phosphorus Bomb picks up a kill. Now Genja carries on chasing. Remember, the Phage movement speed increase is going to allow him to chase away, and you actually see EXO using that Arcane Shift defensively.
The area of effect damage from Corki, even though TG's team was body blocking for him, the AoE was big enough that he still reached in and picked up the kill. But so this is Gambit not forcing the issue, but kills still just keep falling into their laps. Good individual play, good turnarounds. Darien pulling attention and is taking global objectives is working here for Gambit.
And we do see Darien Dominus is not available. He slices once, he dices twice, and gets out cleanly away from Yume.
If he hadn't set up that reset, he would have gotten picked off. That was a really nice attempt from the Moonfall there from Yume. So Gambit They're playing a slower paced game, which surprised me a little bit, but let's actually talk about what they're trying to do with this then. It's basically a game of pressure and putting damage in the turrets. Their mid lane has been out pushing the whole time, but Alex is about to get flanked.
Well, we'll have to see how well Kaiga can do it, because this looks like a replay. This time around, Yume flashes out of the knockup, and that means Diamond does not get time to deal damage. They've traded Flash for mid laner for Flash for jungle, and this time around, MSK get out safely.
They do get out safely, but Gambit actually has an advantage here on the mid lane. If they wanted to pressure the turret, they could do it. I'm just surprised by how defensively they're playing. This is not the Gambit I'm normally used to seeing from these guys. So it is them building slow, aggravatingly, just piece by piece minion leads across their various lanes, and they're just waiting for some kind of openings to happen. They're grabbing dragons on respawn, and that's good at building them a lead. They're hoping to find some turret pressure, but Diamond is not finding any ganks.
Well, talking about the Dragon, MSK are going to be well aware of the Dragon timer, and they should be able to at least set up vision and potentially challenge for the very next Dragon that spawns. But we are a couple minutes away from that. As it stands right now, Sunfire Cape completed for Snoy's Zac up in the top lane. Sunfire Cape being worked towards by Darien up there in the top lane, and nothing really major being completed across the board. You may, in fact, get into that Abyssal Scepter before his counterparts, Alex Ich.
Yeah, well, he did sidestep part of the build and not get a Phoenix Codex as part of that one. So I understand the fact that it's a little bit slow here. But it's actually interesting to point out is that Darien is actually still stacking armor. We actually just mentioned how magic damage heavy the MSK lineup is, but Darien just wants to go into the back line, fully whipped Crescendo.
That hit nobody.
This could be rough.
Here comes TG, Crowstorms forward, a Valkyrie away from Genja. Even though the fear lands, it was after the Valkyrie. TG just gets shut down by the burst damage of Gambit. And a great, dare you call it, counter gank.
And now Alex is looking to make a play, but Kagu's nearby.
A great arcane shift. Alex continues chasing, is not going to be able to burst through the barrier. Ignite is ticking, 110 damage, and if that missile barrage had landed, it would have been enough to pick up a kill, but Alex gets away cleanly. It's not over yet, as now Yume wants to get a taste. Dragon is up in 55 seconds, and this is a repeat of the previous bottom lane fights, which Gambit were hoping would secure them a safe Dragon.
Yeah, exactly. It was basically Genja's reflexes being good enough to Valkyrie away from Crowstorm before the fear got applied by TG. And just like last time, unfortunately Fiddlesticks overextended by doing that and got punished for it. But now 30 seconds left to go till Dragon means that really both these teams can choose to reset for it. Darien, yeah, he's going to survive this one.
Yeah, Darien's not going to be able to win a fight against Snoy plus a turret, but they were trading fairly evenly. Darien actually used his Dominus there, basically just for harass and to keep pushing the wave. It's a farm lane again. You know, both of these top laners just trying to get as tanky as possible and ideally getting to a point where they can wreck the backline of their opposing team.
Yeah. Well, so for what it's worth, Zac does better with no items than Renekton does with no items. Renekton needs to get big to be useful. Zac can theoretically be level 6 and at least do something in a team fight. So compared to that, it's a little bit better for Gambit that this is a farm lane. But Snoy's going to get to the point where he's really going to ruin Genja's day. He's building for a Magic Pen build on top of the Sunfire Cape. I expect to see a Haunting Guise come next. And remember that Yume is also diving the back line and built Abyssal Scepter. Genja will not have magic resist in these team fights and will very easily be killed by Diana Zac.
Oh, Genja with his Trinity Force completed is just shredding through Exo's HP bar. We've seen a critical hit there as he was forcing him back, and Exo simply cannot win trades against a completed Triforce. However, he's just completed his own, so we'll be seeing some slightly more fair trades. 3-level difference between Darien and Kaiju, and Darien decides to back out. He realizes he's outnumbered. But knowing the number of members of MSK up in the top lane, it does allow Gambit to start off this Dragon. It doesn't look like Philippines MSK will want to challenge this.
Just like clockwork, Gambit managed to pressure the bottom lane away and then show up to take the Dragon down. This is another one uncontested because MSK aren't really able to contest them. This is the gold lead that Gambit are building. They might get a catch here.
Yeah, it's not over yet. We do see Crowstorm goes down. They're trying to focus Genja and Voidal. Genja once again gets out cleanly. The Crowstorm has done nothing to him. Alex secures the first kill of the fight. Is now Diamond Prox's Bloodwell passive does get popped. They've shut down Ezreal in the background and now turned their attention over to Yume. Diana is now out as we see Snoy gets charmed up. That was a great charm by Alex Ich. The Bloblets pop up and the question is, who scrambles to squash them? Alex goes 3-0-3 killing spree, 4 for 0. They get Dragon, and they're going to take blue buff This is complete control from them, as we do see a dive forward from Kaigu. The Fear proc throws Genja backwards. He may not be able to get away. That is a shutdown for Kaigu. He smites a minion on the way out, and it's just a matter of time before Gambit pick this one up. Darien says, do want Charm lands, knock up, and Russian Overlord secure their 9th kill of the game.
And Gambit going for a roaming death squad basically after the Dragon pickup, making sure no scraps were left there. And that's now finally a real lead here for the Gambit squad. They've taken their time with these fights. Let's watch the battle come in. TG is going to try again for a Crow Storm, but he's coming in at half HP. It's a very easy pickup there. The Crescendo making life difficult. Alex really just super easy to pick that fight up. But now it's the fight in the back line. Look, Alex finally did go Deathfire Grasp, and he just can get rid of that back line. Diamond was actually the focus of the Mineski lineup, and all they did was pop his Bloodwell. The backline assassination was never found by Mineski. You saw the Let's Bounce used at the end of the fight. Mineski, despite wanting to engage, aren't even engaging properly.
And you've seen there, TG throws himself in with the Crow Storm and didn't follow the CC up. It had already been used. The Fear as well as that Silence. Right now, Darren's got that Hex Drinker completed, so he's going to be able to survive some of that magical damage that's coming down from his opponents. We see a Hex Drinker as well as that Bilgewater Cutlass completed by Diamond Procs as well. And Gambit's playstyle right now is in some ways reminiscent to that of the Chinese teams, going for that roaming death squad. You can see Darien once again very, very extended, does get feared sideways. Knockup comes up from Snowy, but doesn't manage to land. Slices once, dices twice. Darien's done this before. It's not over yet. Flash is available. He should be able to flash away, but here comes Alex. They've taunted up Yume. He's going to Spirit Rush forward. Ignite is ticking. That should be enough to pick it up. That is a rampage now for Alex. There's no more procs on the Spirit Rush, but the Charm does land. Kaigu actually spell shielded up. It's not going to be enough to save him, and now Diamond procs with an Ignite on is trying to get away. Blades of Torment lands. He gets a massive life steal. Saves his life for a couple of seconds as now Snowy flashes over the wall. Darien with the flash still in hand is going to pick up the kill in the background. Kill credit lands with Kaigu. It's not over yet as now TG does throw in the Crow Storm. Genja gets out of range, picks up a double kill, and Sun, you are not going down to the birds as Genja just blows him up.
Absolutely incredible fighting by Gambit. Those are the jungle fights, the mid-range fights they were looking for. Honestly, this entire game has actually given Gambit the types of battles they wanted. These split up 3-on-3s. They've got guys like Renekton and Ahri who love to fight small engagements. And when Genja's ahead on items, he's just simply going to beat you in a fight. The Crow Storm jump in was nice from TG, but it just wasn't enough to win the battle. That bottom lane is so far ahead.
Here's a replay of this bottom lane fight. So Freak, what really helped Genja?
Really, really good Terrify. He gets a lot of damage from the Crow Storm, but this Crescendo means everything. It locks up both TG and EXO, and as you mentioned, Genja was out of range of the Crow Storm for the last about second of that damage, and no longer took damage from Ezreal, which means he got to turn it right back around, put the burst down, which Corki does really well, and just get the rest of the damage he needed.
Could say that Mineski could not avoid that Crescendo. Right now, Gambit 14-4 up on the kill score, 10,000 gold advantage and in a real power position. Bloodthirster completed, and Genja is just going to delete Yume. Now they try to focus on Kaigu as he throws himself off to the right. Genja continues the chase. Missile after missile is just shredding through the HP. It actually continues to slash everyone else. Blades of Torment is going to slow TG and EXO is out. They now split up. A flash over the wall. Valkyrie should be up. In fact, Darien's going to slice through, and it's just all too easy for Gambit right now. They see hero and kill hero.
Yeah, at this point, they've got a very, very large lead, 13,000 gold. And this is Gambit now saying, all right, we can siege at this point. We've got Sona to keep her health bar up. There's a bit of sustain from Genja and Alex Ich. Actually, a lot of the Gambit's lineup has actually some decent sustain, and they can just keep pushing forward, breaking down minion lines, and pushing into the turret. I think they could even fight a battle underneath the Mineski turret and win because Darien has so much health and armor. He can just tank that damage.
Well, we do see them now bashing away on this inhibitor turret. Diamond Procs throws down that ultimate and Massacre. Massive amount of attack damage in the background. Crescendo once again locking up Mineski. They have traded kills though as Alex has dropped down. We do see a second kill onto Snows. Now Kaigu is going to get dropped by those Blades of Torment. Yume in the background doing the best he can to run away. The shield kept him alive for a few seconds, but EXO is the final target as Gambit just rotates. They pick up a clean ace Inhibitor's going to drop, and Gambit are not going to stop. They're going to get on the Nexus turrets.
They've got 20 seconds until the next important champion respawns. That should be enough for them to close out this game and start the group out 1-0. Game had a little bit of a slow start in the game, but they turned it on in the mid-game. Only 24.5 minutes in, they're going to take down MSK's Nexus.
For the longest time, this game was so incredibly close. 4-2 in kills, and in the space of 8 to 9 minutes, it just blew up. Voidal went 0-0-10. Did not drop a single death in that game, and while for one crescendo, really helped keep Genja alive.
So I'm impressed, I guess, by the actual game plan then from Gambit. I thought this was weird. They're not playing Gambit style. They're waiting so much to start pick up the kills. Like, they don't really want to be the team that gets dived and gets picked on, and you don't want to let the other team set the pace. But Gambit said, no, we're just waiting for certain items to come through. Get the Trinity Force done, wait till the Death Guard Grasp actually comes through, the Sunfire Cape's done, and Daring can pull more attention, then we'll turn it on and just crush you.
Well, MSK, they had a couple of moments there of brilliance. They got the very first blood in a straight-up 2v2 against Genja and Voidal. You've seen that Kaigu was roaming the map, and you know, for the first opening couple of minutes, was actually reading Diamond Procs relatively well. They were always in the same area at the same time, but they just couldn't turn it on when they really needed to.
And now, the composition here for MSK was engage. It's start fights. Diana, Nocturne, Zac. Those are the engagers. Those are the initiators. It's up to Ezreal and Fiddlesticks to follow up on that engage because you've blown all your crowd control on the Zac or the Nocturne to try to get them off you. And then Crowstorm shows up from behind, yells caw, 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 and everyone falls over. Unfortunately for MSK, they never got that plan rolling. The let's engage on our terms and start a team fight. That never happened. Gambit set the pace, started the Dragons, and then whenever MSK tried to stop them at the Dragons, Alex ran up to the side and found someone and killed him, right? The preying on supports. That actually removed part of the teamfight comp for MSK. They removed crucial parts of the 5v5 to not get follow-up damage.
Well, I hope they have learned a lot from this matchup because they do have 7 more group games to play. Guys, we do need to take a very quick break. But when we return, we'll be talking to Gambit's manager, Konstantin Pikina, about his team's dominating performance. Then, the Korean powerhouse Ozone and their mid laner Dade take on ManCloud and North America's Vulcan. The League of Legends Season 3 World Championship. We'll be right back.